She stumbled into tech after joining her twin sister on a program for young women in STEM, and 10 years later, she is now firmly in the digital inclusion space. Today, we speak to Edna Karijo on digital inclusion. This is She Means Business. I am your host, Claire Munde. Who is Edna Karijo?
Edna Karijo is an award-winning technologist and public policy professional who advocates for digital inclusion for youth in Kenya and in East Africa, who has spent the last decade championing digital inclusion and advocating for technology for development and for social good.
What does digital inclusion really mean?
I describe digital inclusion as the ability to access, have equitable access to use tech as well as benefit from digital technologies. So 3 keywords there: equitable access, the ability to not just access but to use and to benefit from digital technologies regardless of who you are or which community you come from or whichever parts of the world you are in.
So tell us, did you study tech? How did you land into this space? Give us a bit of your background.
What I tell lots of people is tech is for everyone. My journey started off back in campus. My twin sister and I were studying at Kenyatta University. We were fortunate enough to join an initiative called KU Females in Science and Technology. My twin sister was doing a BSc degree, so I tagged along her and we joined KU Females in Science and Tech. It was being championed by the then Vice Chancellor, Professor Olive Mugenda. She was big when it came to inclusion, gender advocacy. And also that really tells you when you design specific programs and initiatives for young women, you're more likely to get more young women into the space. You're more likely to get young women into tech if you target them specifically and design for them. So we were mentored a lot within the initiative. We also worked on research. You know, we used the lab, the computer lab and the resource lab for a lot of research, and we actually, my twin sister and I got to be selected by the university to present a research paper in Italy during our 4th year. So it was firsthand, you know, the lived experiences and the benefits that you get when you're in such a community. Then later on, when I transitioned into the job market, I was still very fortunate enough to get work opportunities within the tech space. So one that was also pivotal was when I joined a business and technology firm. It was called Gravity Solutions. We worked a lot with tech softwares, ERPs. We were dealing with all kinds of softwares. And so the environment that you are in and being around techies and learning on the job really gave me a headway into understanding my passion. So I was very, very passionate about tech, being online. You'd find me, you know, online most of the times. Then after that, another pivotal moment still in my career was when I joined the iHub community. So it was open to young people who were either tech enthusiasts or wanted to set up startups that had a tech focus, or who simply needed mentorship and to learn about the tech space. Together with others, we co-founded 2 tech startups. We learned about business models, pitching. At that time, an initiative was being started by Google. So Google wanted to equip millions of young Africans with digital skills to prepare them for their personal careers, as well as to get them to understand digital for their enterprises, so both for their personal careers as well as for their businesses. And back then, the awareness and the digital literacy was not as high as it is now. So things keep changing really fast. We would go to institutions, to universities, to colleges, to communities across Kenya and introduce people to digital skills, train them, get them to understand social media. We had quite a number of successes through the Google Digital Skills for Africa. So for me, it was such a fulfilling moment because my passion for youth and being in communities was now, I'd say, merged with this new passion that I'd found, which is tech and digital inclusion. A few months down the line, the then PS, Professor Bitange Ndemo, heard about my story. And so he knew about the Google Digital Skills program, but he also heard about my story and a few others. And he featured me in the Business Daily in an article on digital transformation lies in Africa's revolution lies in the digital transformation. So at that time, that was the buzzword, and people were getting to just learn and understand what is this whole digital transformation. I then transitioned to Immobilis, still within the Google Digital Skills for Africa. And I am still with Immobilis. It's an award-winning technology training institution and incubation hub, 16-year-old Kenyan award-winning tech institution. And so during that time, still implementing Google Digital Skills, I now transitioned to a program manager. So I had more responsibilities to mentor and to lead other young people who were also very passionate, very passionate about going out to communities and advocating for digital and tech and teaching people, this is the new, this is the direction that the world is going, so you have to understand digital tools. From there, now recently, a few other initiatives that I have led include the Ajira Digital Program, still at Immobilis, which is a government initiative supported by Muscat Foundation. So the digital and tech space has really evolved. The last decade when I've been championing digital inclusion, the market has evolved, the needs of young people and what's in demand has evolved, and I've witnessed that actually through one of the initiatives that I have led at Immobilis, which is the Ajira Digital Program, which is a government initiative supported by Muscat Foundation that aims to enable young people to access digital and digitally enabled work. So if you realize there's a shift, young people who are getting into the tech and digital space are now looking for multiple ways of earning an income, whether it's through remote work, whether it's through freelancing platforms, whether it's through BPO work, and some are still going for full-time jobs, but flexible tech jobs. And so one of the things that I have personally done together with my team is we have to keep understanding the needs of the market and understanding what young people need and the skills that are in demand. And so that is what we have been focusing on when it comes to championing digital inclusion. Then I also volunteer with Internet Society of Kenya I'm currently the vice chair, and we advocate for internet governance. We are a large community of 3,000 plus ICT professionals. My journey actually with Internet Society started back in 2017, and what I loved about the work, which really aligned with my passion, was looking at the internet as a tool for social good and using tech for development and for social good, and making sure that people, regardless of where they are geographically, have access to the internet, understand online safety, but also the policy part of it. Because of my background also in public policy, I did a master's in public policy and management from Strathmore. And so there's another whole ecosystem. If you have to make tech work, there's a whole ecosystem of getting the right policies, advocating for the youth to benefit meaningfully from the digital economy through proper enabling environment, which can only be achieved, if government, private sector, civil society, and other actors really provide a strong ecosystem to make whatever is being done on the ground work. Because the work that I've been doing the last decade championing digital inclusion cannot be successful if we do not have an enabling environment, if we do not have proper laws, if we, as a country, if we don't have proper policies. But one thing that Kenya has done really well as I'd say a front runner when it comes to tech policies, whether it's the Kenya National AI Strategy that was launched recently by the government, whether it's the Digital Economy Blueprint that was also launched by the government. So we are at the forefront when it comes to policies, and it makes the work now so much easier when you advocate for digital inclusion.
So you said that tech is an equalizer, and you've mentioned a number of points there, but I'd like us to double down on two issues. So you talked about young people having access to opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have if it were not for tech. How do we balance between giving them those opportunities and making sure they're not misused? Because sometimes we talk about tech for good, but sometimes it can be used in the wrong way, and you've brought up the issue of AI. So how do we ensure that young Africans are able to get the skills that they need, but they don't end up using it for the wrong purposes or being misused?
I'd look at it in different perspectives. Number one, I am a believer, as you've said, that technology is an equalizer. I have worked I've served communities in different parts of the countries, and I've witnessed firsthand how a young person in a rural area or a marginalized community, or even in the refugee camps in Dadaab, where I've spent time advocating for digital inclusion, I have seen firsthand how accessing the internet, accessing the right skills, the right courses, and being mentored makes a difference and gets them to a level that any other young person is. So tech is an equalizer for young people. And also, tech becomes an equalizer for disadvantaged groups. For example, young women in marginalized areas, they have to deal. There's a downside that you've mentioned that comes with tech, that comes with being online. Young women will be more prone to cyberbullying. Young women will be more prone to the dangers that come with being online. But also there are other social norms and dynamics that disadvantage them, whether it's caregiving, whether it's cultural practices. In some remote parts of Kenya where young women are not allowed to own a smartphone, they're not allowed to own a laptop or a computer. They have to borrow either their husbands or the male figure in the community, their brothers. Even to access skilling and training, we always have instances where for the young women to come, at least they have to have permission from the elders in the community. So that happens a lot in in many setups, whether it's in northeastern or some rural parts of the coast, where you have to understand the social cultural norms there and work closely with the male elders, help them to understand these are the benefits of accessing digital skills, tech skills, and what it will do to the community. So that's the first point. Tech is an equalizer. The second is as you've mentioned, being aware of the dangers that come with tech and with AI. So one of the things that we have tried to incorporate in our entire learning programs is mentorship. So getting them to understand how to interact with clients, how to know which are scams, how to understand contracting so as not to get conned. We have lots of youth who've lost money, lots of money online, simply because their etiquette, and pointers that they should have known beforehand. So that's why mentorship is so important, and having a buddy or somebody that you share your online journey with. So we always encourage them to have those communities of digital workers. We formed lots of communities of digital workers, which have really come in handy when young people are approached by clients and they're able to tell who is genuine, what to pitch, how much to pitch, how not to get conned, how to ask for contracting before you take on a job, how to air grievances. So getting them mentored and getting them into digital communities really goes a long way. Now, AI is another whole ball game. But you know what they say in tech? Tech is regulated after it's invented. It's hard to regulate something that you do not have. And so that's why it's a reality. The technology comes first, the innovations come first, and then regulators and policymakers work with that to come up with policies and regulations and guidelines. That's always the flow. So in between there, we, as the users or as the policymakers, you have to quickly deal with how to mitigate such issues. So especially for youth, there's a lot of peer pressure that comes with being online. And now with AI, disinformation and misinformation becomes the order of the day. So again, which calls for the need to create more awareness, to get people, to be still skilled on online safety and what to look out for. Also, the other area that I've always really encouraged people to get to understand is how to be safe online. So a bit of cyber security and understanding encryption. So whether it's through passwords, whether it's through monitoring your digital footprint, and just keeping track of how to be safe online. So that's another whole entire topic that every lay person, every young person needs to understand. Is online etiquette, and what you do online leaves a footprint, and how do you keep safe. So we still need a lot of awareness creation, and that's where digital inclusion advocates like us come in to help spread the word about tech, the good side, and also the things that you should be mindful of.
Okay, and you've mentioned a number of interesting points, but before we get to that, you talked about your digital footprint. We need to have good etiquette online. We have different demographics of people who watch this show. Give us a brief one or two tips for people, because they say, whatever is online never really leaves. So what are some of the things that young people and even other people should be aware of when it comes to their digital footprint? What are they doing wrong that might harm them in the long term?
Really good question. I'd look at it in different perspectives, especially when it comes to the platforms that one uses. So let's start with social media as an example. What I always advise people and what every layperson needs to understand is whatever you post on social media leaves a trail, even if it's deleted. There's a trail, there's a footprint, and I always encourage people to be your authentic self and be mindful that you're not alone. It's an entire community, so you do not know who will come across the post. And being authentic and knowing how to represent yourself, I think it's what matters. There's no good way to be you. I think authenticity is what matters, but also being mindful of the space that you are in. Number 2, still on social media, is passwords and making sure your the platforms that you're using and your phone that they're encrypted. We've seen lots of people getting hacked, their WhatsApp accounts getting hacked, their Facebook accounts getting hacked, and it can happen to anyone. It also happens to techies. Simple things that you should not do. When you receive a message from an unknown person and it's prompting you to download, before you download, make sure you know what it is that you're downloading, because that's how hackers get into your accounts. It's simply something very enticing that sends to you, or they have simply monitored your pattern and how you use your social media. So by the time you're receiving the message, you think it's the usual messages that you receive, and before you know it, you've downloaded something that then leads you to being attacked. But social media also has presented another key challenge, especially for youth. The peer pressure is real, to live up to what your communities and peers expect. We've seen young people coming online, devastated that why are all their peers making it and why are they not making it, and so they end up creating false impressions or false profiles, and before you know it, they have gotten into depression because that's not them. So mental health is another whole discussion that everyone needs to be cognizant of and advocate for, especially to the youth. So being online, being in tech, we can't not talk about mental health and the peer pressure, especially when you're dealing with young people. Then the other platforms, of course, are the daily apps that you'll use, whether it's emails or whether it's the other apps. So same etiquette, make sure your passwords are strong, keep changing them after a certain duration, be mindful and very careful about what you're downloading or which sites you're visiting and what cookies you're accepting. So most websites you'll see accept all cookies, decline all cookies, or manage preferences. Many times people just go accepting everything. So it works for the person who's on the other side, because then they'll use that for different things. So it's for promotional, marketing. But on the flip side, your data is also being accessed. So you have to be mindful and, manage your preferences, or simply deny all cookies. Just simple etiquette on your phone can go a long way with keeping you safe. And then the other thing I always tell people is make sure at least somebody close to you knows the platforms that you are on and your digital footprint as well, because then if something happens, they're the ones to quickly prompt you. Then for professionals or for young people getting into the job market, again, being your authentic self, presenting yourself professionally goes a long way, even for techies. Understanding that there is also a side to the work environment, or whether you're running a business. So always encourage people to be themselves.
Okay. Now, at the start of this conversation, I said this conversation will also be tech for non-techies, and you've mentioned about apps, and there's all the conversations about apps, websites, and as you doubled down on that, I want you to explain to people who may not be very cognizant about the differences and what use each of these platforms use. I remember I was at a bank some time back, and the mobile app was down, and this guy was like, he wanted to make a transaction using the app, and he was told, use the website because the app is down. And he was like, no, I can't use the website because my data can be stolen. The app is is safer. So is that true? And just break down, what is the use of apps? What is the use of websites? Remember, we have different demographics, and people just know their apps, people know their websites. So what is the use of each of these? What purpose do they serve?
There's lots of tools and lots of ways to achieve something. So in the tech world, what we encourage businesses and people to look at when they're either developing websites or mobile applications, or even simply trying to figure out what to put together, is to always look at the customer and who you're serving, the people, and how best can they access what it is that you want to give them. So let's take the case of the bank that you've mentioned. The banking and financial sector is one of the fastest growing sectors adopting digital transformation, and most banks now have dedicated apps that are slightly different to what you'll find on the website, and that's because they've already mastered the art of understanding their customer needs and making sure that they are customer facing. And an app is the perfect way to quickly avail products to your clients, and also based on sentiments from ordinary people, is, as you've said, you'll feel safer doing a transaction on the app than on the website. So a lot of, again, research goes on the ground before companies and organizations decide, do we need only a website, or do we need a website and an app? So look at the people who are your customers, be customer facing, and what solution are you providing? Number two, the issue of safety. Both are safe. Both websites and apps are safe because the technology, the safety measures that goes into creating an app are the same that will go into creating a website. Cybersecurity has to be incorporated from the beginning, from scratch. When you're starting to build the site or the mobile app, you need to have your cybersecurity specialist there. So all are safe. I don't think it should be an issue. But also, one of the things that we as Kenya, of course, are known for is most young Kenyans, browse from their mobile phones. It's more easily accessible and more affordable than laptops and computers. So the demographic in Kenya that is using mobile phones is one of the highest. And a lot of people now access the internet through their mobile phones. So having an app that you truly know that your customer will need becomes also an additional benefit. But at the end of the day, it's look at your customer. If they don't need the app, then you don't need to really create that, unless for sure the client needs that.
Okay, so I pivoted the conversation a bit, but let's come back to tech and women. So you talked about your journey starting with that mentorship when you were at KU, Professor Olive Mugenda, having that program that really helped you see a future in tech, and you took it and ran with it. But as a woman in tech, what are some of the unique challenges that you have faced, and how can tech be a force for good, not just for people, but for women, young women specifically, to really achieve and break barriers?
There's multiple dynamics and multiple scenarios and challenges, if I may call them that way, that young women face that probably the young men haven't faced. Number one is currently statistics show that there are much fewer women developers and women in tech, not just in Kenya but globally. And there are a number of contributing factors. The first is it starts off at a young age. In school, you'll find in the education space, not many young women are choosing to pursue college degrees in tech or in STEM, whether it's computer science, information technology, or engineering. And one of the ways to mitigate that will be early mentorship, early on when someone is in primary school and high school, way before they get into the actual, higher level education. Mentorship and encouraging young women to see this as not just a male-focused industry, but an industry for everyone. And a lot of that also is contributed by the spaces that you are in. So if you grow up as a young woman seeing more young men, whether it's your siblings or whoever in the tech space, you would likely think that that's for them. But if you grow up and see other young women in the tech space, still within your family or community setting, that already changes the perception, and it brings a mindset shift to knowing that's for them. So even when you get to college, whether it's in universities or TVET colleges, you'll always find very fewer women. So initiatives and advocacy initiatives have to start very early on. For me, at least, I was very fortunate that I found that at KU, so it was right on time before I got into the job market, going through Kenyatta University Females in Science and Technology, which mentored myself, my twin sister, and very many others who are not just in the tech space, there were those in the sciences space, which are also very male dominated. Then the second thing, of course, that women go through is other roles that you have to do, whether it's caregiving roles, taking care of family, or simply social cultural norms, like I mentioned earlier, different settings. So you can imagine if the community is not well educated or made aware that this field is both for women and men, then you'll always find lesser women, because the person, say, who is supporting the young woman in the house, whether it's the guardian, the father, the uncle, or whoever, if they're not aware that my daughter or my niece or my neighbor's daughter can do this, then it's already it becomes already a factor that leads to fewer women. So creating more awareness, information also. And I love that now, with the age of social media, we are seeing more young women take on and mentor others virtually. So it's much more easy and accessible to get role models. There are virtual spaces, virtual communities, webinars for mentoring young women, WhatsApp groups. Even young women from an early age as high school or post-high school get into such groups and get mentored. Then thirdly, I'd say is when you're designing for women, or if you're designing a program or an initiative and you need more young women to come in, design and target them. You have to be very intentional, because the young women won't show up if you simply put something out or promote a program or a course or an initiative without deliberately and intentionally saying young women need to apply. They will not apply. It's just the nature of women. We love ticking all the boxes, and we love being told that this is for you, and then you will apply. So we saw that actually in one of the programs that we ran, an AWS research program, still as part of Nigeria. At the last cohort we put out, when we were asking young people to apply to get into the course, this time the strategy was slightly different, and we put out a different messaging that said there would be a women-only class in that cohort. So what happened is, when it was promoted and put out, we actually got, for the first time, more young women than men applying for the entire course, simply because of two statements that said there'll be a women-only cohort and women are encouraged to apply. So they oversubscribed, and because they felt this is for them. So same case in formal education. I think if universities and colleges really want to get young women into their classes, into their tech degrees or engineering degrees, they have to intentionally go look for the women, and they have to intentionally tell them, apply, this is for you. Then you'll see a difference.
You mentioned some of the challenges, unique challenges that young women face, and that includes having the extra burden of unpaid care work. So tell me, in your own experience, how has it been balancing between professional career growth in the tech space and having your own personal life? What does that look like?
So to be honest, Claire, what has worked for me, and I've been very fortunate, is early on in my career, I've aligned my profession with my passion. Remember I mentioned to you how even when we were in campus, we were very passionate about youth programs, volunteering, advocating. And so as a young woman, by the time you're getting into the job market, what was fortunate for me is I found my passion that merged into my profession. And so I don't look at it separately as having a profession and then having another separate life where you're trying to figure out what's your passion. And so having those two merge together has really worked for me. And I also encourage other young women, whether they're raising families or simply starting out their careers. What is really important is understanding what your passion is. Technology is simply an enabler to enable you take that passion, monetize it, whether it's through entrepreneurship, monetize it through remote work, or simply even looking for formal employment, but knowing this is my passion and this is what I can use tech for. It makes a whole, it makes the entire journey become much more fulfilling. And I know it's for many young women also, they always ask themselves, okay, so how will I balance? How do I really find my passion? I always say connect the dots looking backwards. Okay, so what have you been doing and what did you find to be quite fulfilling? And then try to connect those dots to truly understand this is where I felt most fulfilled in. This is what I would do even without knowing if I will be paid. I can actually volunteer doing this. And when you have that, the money follows. When you have something valuable that either you're offering or it's a unique talent that you have, the opportunities will open up for you. And most importantly, your well-being becomes aligned and you become much more fulfilled in life if you truly understand your passion. For young people, lastly, I know many young people, including Gen Zs, love flexibility and doing multiple things. So for them, I think it works when they're doing multiple things and having flexible, whether it's remote work, freelancing. Today they're trying out this, tomorrow they're trying out that. So also different ages and demographics might operate differently. But the most important thing, they also find their passion, whether it's in creative arts, whether it's being an influencer online and understanding your unique talents. For young women, I think it works better when you align those two.
Now, finally, I'd like you to look into the camera and speak to that woman, that young woman right now who's watching you and has ambitions to be in the tech space and wants it to be an enabler and an equalizer. What is that one piece of advice that you would give her?
The piece of advice that I'd give every young woman out there who is looking to get into the tech space, who is looking to get into the digital space, follow your passion, follow what it is that you truly love to do, whether you've started out in a tech background or you're currently right now pivoting into the tech background. Always ask yourself, what's your passion? Then use technology to elevate that and to create a livelihood and a career out of that.
Okay, you've heard it from Edna Karijo. Tech is an enabler and an equalizer. Find your passion and make it align with your work, and that's where the magic will happen. This has been She Means Business. I have been your host, Claire Munde. Until next time, have a good one.